Hey, and today we are doing a ranking of all my personal favorite killers. And just killers I like to play as in general. But before we get started, of course, scroll down, subscribe, like, comment your favorite killer and why. I think the favorite killers shift a lot with a lot of different people, and everyone has their own reasons. So I'd like to hear yours. All right. But in today's video, we're talking my opinions. We're talking some opinions and ranking the killers by how much I like to play them personally. We have 5 tiers in this video. Never play by choice. Not one of my usual picks. I'll play them for a challenge. Great to play every now and then. And then always down to play them. First up, we have the never play by choice tier. And the first one I put here is Twins. And Twins kind of speaks for themselves. The constant back and forth walking you have to do if you're actually picking up and hooking survivors, and the long cooldowns between as you're trying to do that, really just makes Twins more of a chore to play than an actual enjoyable killer. And Victor can be fun. The movement speed and the lunge is really fun, but overall, I think that Twins is just not that fun, and it's a lot more waiting than actually playing. Next is Spirit, and Spirit, the reasoning for this one is pretty simple. I just don't want to pay full attention to my audio, especially if I'm just trying to chill, which most of the time if I'm playing killer, I just kind of want to sit back and relax. Like there's some killers that are the exception to this that I'll talk about later, but Spirit always kind of feels like a killer you have to try hard with, and since I'm not, trying to be a Spirit main, I don't really want to play Spirit like that, so I just tend to avoid her like overall. Now, what I know a lot of people are actually probably going to be a little bit curious about is Wesker. And Wesker is a great character. It's not anything on Wesker as a character. I just personally don't like his power and tend to avoid him when it comes to playing killer. I'm sure that if I played Wesker enough and got better at him, I would enjoy him. But as he is now, I feel like he stays in this spot just because I don't ever play him. And most of the time, I can just feel really clunky with his dashes, and I end up just bumping into stuff. Yeah, I understand that it's a skill issue, but this is my personal opinion, and that's why he's here. Doctor is our next one, and I think a lot of you can agree that Doctor's just really not that fun to play. His chase power is pretty boring and can oftentimes not really have too much of an effect in chase. Usually you just shock over and over, and sometimes you can't even really notice whether you have the timing right or anything. It's just very annoying to deal with. And then his main power is just info, the power, essentially. All it is just where is everybody with a click of a button, and that's pretty much it. So it doesn't feel that special to me. It really just feels tiring every time I play him, because it's just the same thing. And the only reason I would play Doctor, and the only reasons I have played Doctor, is it's the same as everyone for the impossible skill check build. Just because he has the add-ons to make his terror radius bigger, and no other killer really has that. So yeah, that's the main reason I actually gravitate towards Doctor. Not to mention he also has the messed up skill checks for his power that also help with the impossible skill check build. But yeah, sadly that's really all he's good for me and for a lot of people as well. Pinhead is their next one, and he's in this tier for the same reason that Wesker is. I just don't really like his power, and I don't really understand the spawn logic of the box. Again, another skill issue, you could say, but I just don't play him enough to really understand how the box spawns, and I've never really bothered to look it up and kind of learn. So I don't really like to play Pinhead just for that main reason. Also, I never tend to use add-ons when I play unless they are brown or yellow. So Pinhead having really good purples and a really busted iridescent makes him a killer I also don't tend to gravitate towards because I don't level up, like all my killers equally for the most part. I did for perks, but at this point now I just kind of level up a couple different people, so I just don't have many add-ons on Pinhead, and I'm not really interested on having add-ons on Pinhead because I don't want to level up Pinhead because I just don't like playing them. All right, last in this tier, actually, you have Ghostface. And Ghostface, I think, is a very well designed character, but I just stopped playing him while I was trying to do his adept because I got the worst possible open maps for Ghostface. And I just had so much pain happen in those games. And Ghostface's perks, if you don't know, are very rough, especially with just those three. So I just had loss after loss after loss after loss. And the main issue was the Chaser Emblem because I mean, as you know, the Chaser Emblem is like super hard to please. You got to sacrifice like 13 goats and make sure that you hit people 12 times or something. It's awful. So, yeah, Ghostface is really just here because the adept games I did were really rough and I never really played Ghostface that often anyways. I never really had an issue with him before, but I just didn't really like to play him. Also, the one thing that I did like to play Ghostface on, I used to use map offerings for, was Hawkins. Ghostface on Hawkins was super fun. I would love for Hawkins to be back just for that. Like, please, please, behavior. All right, now we're on to our next tier, and this one is not one of my usual picks. And this tier is just for killers who I rarely visit and play a couple games with, and then usually not play them again for a very long time. So, starting off with this tier, we have Freddy. He's very basic, and he's just not someone you go, ooh, I definitely want to play Freddy. The only really time I play him is just as a warm up, because he's just an M1 killer with some, basic chase power. So I just tend to play him as a warm up because he keeps me good in chase with basic mind games. But usually I actually tend to go for Legion when it comes to my warm ups nowadays. Also, Freddy is pretty good when it comes with gen regression perks, and that's kind of one of his main gimmicks in the similar way of Doctor, where you kind of just play Freddy because you want to use like pop overcharge or like some other eruption pop or some other like combination of regression perks because he can just teleport to gens and then immediately you just see the progress go away. That's the main reason he's played by a lot of people, and I just don't find it that enjoyable. I just don't like gen kicking in general. So yeah, just not that great. Michael is also pretty similar to Freddy in that he's very basic. I can enjoy some Michael from time to time, and Scratch Mirror Myers is always fun to play. But unfortunately, when it comes to base Myers, the best way to play him is just to slug, and slugging is never just fun to have to do. So for the most part, I tend to avoid Michael. But I mean, again, he's got some vaulting builds and he's got some interesting builds that you can do. But yeah, he's just too basic for me, and he actually does, even just with some of his smaller add-ons, have some add-on reliance. But you can run him with yellow add-ons, and that works out pretty well. Next up is Trapper, and Trapper, when I do play him, I actually do have some fun, but that usually comes at the cost of a 3 or 4 man out. Without playing the basement or tunneling with this killer, it can just feel so rough to play as him. Not to mention, playing him with no add-ons still kind of sucks. I mean, they buffed his base kit, but even with that, not having like all traps with the purple add-on or like still carrying extra traps with all the sack add-ons still feels awful, and it's still it still feels like there's something missing. And yeah, that's just the main reason why I just haven't played Trapper really at all. Dredge is actually one of those killers that I actually like and could move up in this ranking if it wasn't for the fact that I literally played 40 games straight before the prestige changes to use all of his flaunts because I didn't want to make sure anyone was wasting flaunts. So I played all of these games like just of course it wasn't all in one day, but I played 40 games on Dredge because I got a lot of flaunts for him because he was the New York killer at the time. So, yeah, were those games fun? I mean, absolutely. Would I play them again? See, that's where the issue comes in because I still have a lot of that burnout, and it still feels like just really to play Dredge because way back when, because I played just so much of them to the point where I got burned out. So, I mean, I'm sure when I get over that burnout and I finally come back to the dredge, I'm sure it'll be fun. I mean, I don't doubt it. I think dredge can be really fun. So, maybe sometime I get over that burnout and actually start playing them again. Next is just Hillbilly, and yeah, he's a self-explanatory one. I play on console. Chainsaw is hard. That's it. That's all I have to say. All right, Huntress. Huntress is one that I do enjoy. When I'm playing well. And it can be hard to push through those warm up games where I'm playing terribly and actually have those good games. So, more often than not, I will just find myself playing one or two games and then moving on. Because playing till I can actually get pretty competent and actually hit some mid range hatchets and hit some, like predict survivor movements and hit some dodges that they attempt to do, that's really hard. It's really hard for me to get to that point. So, I tend to just not play Huntress too much. I definitely will play her occasionally, and I will enjoy it, but yeah, I mean, aim is everything with Huntress, so you have to get a warm up with her. All right, Bubba. Bubba's last in this ranking, and honestly, the only killer in this tier that I could see moving down to the never play by choice. But sometimes I do like the occasional Bubba, even though in most games it's pretty rough. But I think that is just because that his add-ons are like next level important. Without chilies and without beast marks, Bubba becomes a lot worse. So I think that's just the main factor I have for not playing him. I just don't, I don't want to level up Bubba to get all those add-ons, so I just tend not play him at all. All right, we're on to our next tier, and this is a very short tier, and it is I'll play him for a challenge. Now, despite what the name implies, I wouldn't say that I would just play them for the challenge and then immediately get off of them. That would be more so like the last tier. Usually these killers, I play them for a challenge and then play a couple more games as them. I realize, oh, these killers are actually pretty fun, so I get on them and actually play a couple games with them. First off, we have Hag, and Hag is actually one I've grown to like. I used to not be the biggest fan, and I used to only do her when I had the challenge to trigger her traps and then get a hit immediately. But now I actually tend to play her a lot for challenges, like tome challenges with hexes and anything that I have to like defend something or pretty much anything like that for tome challenges. I will always gravitate towards Hag because she's just really good at that, and actually will just have a lot of fun. Next, we have Wraith, and Wraith is actually a exception to my usual rule because Wraith is a killer I play only with add-ons. I only play with Bone Clapper, and I think it's called Soot, the brown add-on that like suppresses his terror radius and uh, red stain, and the Coxcomb Clapper. I play with that all the time too. So I will do gen grab challenges with Wraith as well. I'm not that they're all successful, and usually it isn't. But doing those gen grab tomes are very difficult, and the only way I can find to do it is by using the aforementioned Soot add-on and Coxcomb Clapper, and just hoping for the best. But Wraith is a very fun killer when it comes to add-ons, and he's only in here because he's the exception to the rule for me, because I always use add-ons on him, and I think just all the add-on combinations you can make, and just like with break speed, just speed in general, um, like aforementioned, Bell add-ons with Soot, it's fun. It really is fun, and I mean, he has his shortcomings, and you will just find yourself just losing a game like suddenly, but still always a blast to come back to every now and then. All right, last this tier is Deathslinger, and he's one of the range killers that I'm kind of 50-50 on. Because unlike Huntress, I find that I actually tend to warm up mid game. So like early game, I will go for some shots, and I'll usually miss, or I'll usually not call out dodges. But by the end, I usually start to call out dodges. I start to get shots through small structures. I start to just get more hits in general. So Naturally, I do like queuing up some Deathslinger and using some builds, some nice end game builds, because by the end I'm usually a lot better. So I mean, it's a little guilty pleasure of mine. Some no edge, some no way out. Really fun on on Deathslinger. He's kind of made for it. It's like the perfect combo for him. Next here is Great Treat to play every now and then. Kind of self-explanatory. These are just killers that I like to revisit and play a good amount of games, and I'm always trying different builds on them and trying different ways that I can actually have fun with these killers. All right, first up we have Nemesis, and Nemesis is just a fun choice if I just want to chill and have a fun time in chase. Using his tentacle is pretty simple, and most of the time it's really nice to get those hits. I mean, having to do 3 hits kind of sucks, but getting tentacle hits, and especially if you're patient, just like Demo Shred and Wesker's power, even at times, is really satisfying. Like actually, like predicting a survivor that is going to juke and then hitting with the tentacle is it's really fun. It actually it really gives a nice shot of dopamine into my brain. Also, Nemesis is zombies. They don't work most of the time, but sometimes they'll just do the craziest things, and it just makes Nemesis even more fun to play. Also, his add-ons can be fun. I actually do like his add-ons. Next up is Artist, and I'd actually say that Artist is one of my mains, but a big factor for fun is being able to play this killer whenever. And Artist for me doesn't really have that flexibility, as most of the time it takes a lot of focus and just general like thinking and counterplay to the survivors that a lot of other killers really don't. There's just a lot of depth to Artist and kind of like the placements and how they're going to dodge. A lot of prediction involved, and it's just kind of a lot more effort than a lot of killers have to ask for. But that being said, I still love her. I still love Artist, and she is one of my 3 mains. And I go back to her, and I go on a binge with her, and I usually play a lot of games. I'm always trying to look to improve with her, and yeah, I do find her really fun. Also, Zancian Tactics. If you're playing Artist, not using Zancian Tactics, it is actually a really nice perk to run on her. It can be, it can be kind of hard to use up a perk slot if you already have like a nice build. But Zancian Tactics really helps getting those hits through windows or on windows through walls. Being able to see every window in palette is actually very useful on a killer that does like some mid to long range hits with her crows. Okay, Nurse. Nurse is one that no one's really going to disagree with me in saying that Nurse is fun, right? Hitting a one blink on someone, especially for me who rarely plays Nurse, is such a good feeling. Also, in general, I actually find that Nurse is a pretty good chill character for me. I mean, not my go-to for chill characters, but nice to play for sure. And I mean, while we are missing a lot of that build variety that we had back when she had basic attacks, which is honestly a good thing, I still find that you can kind of just run whatever, but that's more just so the fact that she's the strongest killer in the game. So she doesn't even technically need perks if you're good enough at her. So yeah, I mean, the variety is really nice with Nurse, and just hitting those blinks is always gonna just feel so nice. All right, Trickster. Trickster is my favorite of the 3 range killers. It depends on what you consider range killers. Those are the 3: Deathslinger, Huntress, Trickster, in my opinion. But Trickster is my favorite, and it's just because I feel like the amount of warm up needed is minimal, and I just tend to have decent accuracy, even if I haven't played in a while. I feel like that's mainly just due to him being able to just kind of spam knives, and getting chains is always just so satisfying. Like hearing those glass breaking sounds, like just chain up into a down, will never not just feel great. I also do love using bouncing blades. They're super fun to run, like game to game. If you're having like some rough games, then run some bouncing blades because they they're really fun, and it actually can just be straight up useful on loops where you normally couldn't even hit the survivor. I mean, the main thing about Trickster, though, even though I do enjoy him a lot, is that maps can completely make him unplayable around loops. Like there's some loops that are just too tall, and if the loops are tall, Trickster just has to force that pallet, or just find any gap to hit a knife to try and get an injury or a down. Plague is our next one, and Plague is one that I tend to go on a binge on. I play like 15 or 10 to 15 games in a row, and I do actually enjoy Plague a lot. But outside of playing her in one of my binges, which is typically pretty rare, like some it's just random when I just feel like, hey, you know what, I'm gonna play Plague, and then I like play Plague for a lot of games, and then I just don't play her for a very long time. But sometimes I'll mix in a one Plague game or two, which is why I think she's in this tier. But she also can run perks like Disillusion and Hysteria a lot better than a lot of killers. And I think that's just a big factor for me actually enjoying her because it's like perks that I never really use. So getting used to the perks that I never really touch is actually just really awesome. Like I think that being able to actually use Disillusion for once is pretty cool because I just don't use it on anyone. All right, next is Pyramid Head. And I absolutely love Silent Hill, which makes me want to play Pyramid Head even more than I do currently. But the truth is, Pyramid Head's very similar to Artist for me, where he takes a lot of focus and thinking for his power. So while every hit still feels satisfying, and having all the cage options and continuing pressure, that's all nice. For the most part, I hesitate to play him because the results of the game could always be very rough. It could just be a game where I miss my power 20 times and there's a 4-man out. Or I could get a game, like where I actually get all my predictions right and get all the hits and actually get early cages, early torments. Both of those happen pretty often when I play Pyramid Head. It also kind of sucks that you have to run aura reading. I mean, it feels nice because you get a lot more hits, but at the same time, you kind of have to run some type of aura reading on Pyramid Head. Otherwise, you find yourself getting like no hits at all. Also, I just don't use add-ons, so I don't get to have range. I get no range add-ons or pain res because of his cages. Because I do love pain res, and I just don't get to use it with him. All right, and my next killer is actually pretty controversial because I mean people have been talking about this a lot, and it's just because he's the new killer. But I actually do really like the knight. And I think it's mainly because of the new changes, because spawning a guard to like ambush someone is super satisfying. And while it doesn't happen as much anymore, getting a double hit with Knight still feels great. And like being able to get that set up and getting the double hit feels so good because it actually feels like an earned insta down. And it typically, like I said, it is rare now, which honestly makes it feel even better when you do get one. I think overall being in two places at once is also a very interesting power idea that I really like. And while it does enable camping, and Survivor's just a whole W, I think that playing as him is pretty fun. You just gotta not succumb to the darkness and camp with him, and that's it. Last up in this tier, we have Oni. And Oni is in this tier because it can be difficult to use his power if you haven't played him in a while, but it's actually pretty easy to pick up in comparison to a lot of other killers. So I tend to gravitate towards him more than a lot of the other like killers in this kind of realm of powers, especially when compared to like Hillbilly. He starts as an M1 killer too, which kind of gives me a bit of a warm up into playing killer in general. So like sometimes I will go to Oni as a warm up too, just because you start as an M1 killer, you got to do your normal M1 killer things, and then you get to practice on like a more movement, more power usage. So he's actually a pretty good warm up just overall. Also, predicting somebody will never not feel great. Like when you go in at a dash at a certain angle, um, just to straight up hit them right on the window that you predicted that they were going to go in and vault, or hitting like a really tight angle right around a corner can also just make you feel like such a god with Oni. And I think that's I think that's one of the main factors to why I keep coming back. All right, moving into my always want to play them tier. This tier is self explanatory, and these are my go to killers pretty much every time I click on the killer roll. All right, first we have Sadako. And Sadako is actually one of my three mains that I mentioned before. And I always just have a blast playing her. I think it mainly she filled the hole that Dredge was once in, since they are very similar. I know she came first, but when she first came out, I never really played her, and I never really enjoyed her all that much. And then Dredge came out, and I enjoyed Dredge a lot. Got Burnout, and then I kind of just moved on to Sadako, so I kind of went in reverse. And she's also a killer that you can run brown add-ons on, and it's actually considered really good. So I do run those brown add-ons pretty much every game, and it really helps with her invisibility mind game at loops. But speaking of that mind game, it can be confusing to pick up sometimes, like with the timing. But when you do pick up on that timing, it can get you so many free hits on short loops, and it a lot of hits that a lot of killers couldn't even pull off. We don't talk about the condemned playstyle though. I think that is the epitome of boring playstyles for both sides. So I'm just gonna pretend it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. All right. Next we have Blight, and Blight is fun no matter how good or bad you play. Let's be honest. Blight is fun just to play as. You just run and bump into walls. It doesn't even matter if you get a hit in the end, like if you just miss with a rush. Something about like being creative with the geometry with your rushes and like bouncing all around and bouncing coming in at a certain angle will always just be fun. Like it's easy. I think Blight has always been the pure fun killer. Because even if you're not great as them, I mean, try them. I mean, you'll be surprised. You'll actually have a lot more fun than you think. And Blight is really just a killer I play anytime. I don't really know who I want to play, and I just always have blasting curves around corners, and I mean, it feels so satisfying. Not to mention, like, Blight has a lot of complicated tech, but it's not needed to win as Blight. Like, you can just play Blight, like, base with his power, not do any tech, and you'll find it still working in a lot of situations. He also has a great weapon clean animation, like, for his basic attack. I love, like, the flinging cane. It's very nice looking. Pig is one that's very similar to Plague in the way that I actually tend to have binges with her, but I do play her a bit more than Plague here and there. But I actually used to main Pig along with the next killer. Um, and that was the only killers I played. And I still to this day love Pig, and her built in slowdown makes it so that I don't really have to run as much progression as other killers. So her chase power as well, it's actually pretty fun to use. I mean, it's not the greatest, but um, doing like a double back mind game at a pallet is always going to be pretty satisfying. Or doing like just in general, like any kind of 50-50 can pretty much be solved with her power when she's in crouch. So it's nice. It's always nice to pull off. And the main issue with that is just I wish it was just better as a stealth attack. And she's also another one like Sadako where she actually has good brown and yellow add-ons. So I just typically run add-ons every game I play with her. Legion is up next, and I still main Legion to this day. I used to main Legion Pig, I used to originally main just Legion, and Legion Pyramid Head. But what's been consistent for me throughout all the times I've like picked killer mains is Legion has always been there. And that's just because Legion has always been fun to me. Like the hit chaining, while it doesn't work on every map, getting a 4-man chain into a down will always be just so satisfying, so nice. It really feels like you've made the most of the killer power, and that's really a rare feeling with a lot of other killers. And while it is simple, I think it's just really rewarding, like to get all those hits. Also, like if we want to talk about add-ons, he doesn't really have any good brown and yellow add-ons. The Legion pin is mean. It is mean. Being able to just kind of like hit somebody and just run away and knowing they're going to stay broken is pretty strong, especially since we're kind of just, still in that healing meta. And while it used to be way back when, before Circle of Healing, that you actually were not supposed to heal against a Legion, now it's just like, yeah, why not? Heal against a Legion, deploy your Circle of Healing boon and heal. Who cares? So now, the Legion pin is actually a lot stronger because having that broken effect actually matters. Also, just running like different builds with Legion is fun. Like Vault builds with Superior Anatomy and Bamboozle, and in-game build with No Way Out and Terminus. That's also pretty fun. He's one of the killers that can actually use Terminus very well, especially with the Legion pin. And kind of the same as Plague in that way, where even if um actually I actually don't know how that power interacts. I don't know how Plague power works. Like, what happens if you're like hit with Vile Purge and you get broken and then cleanse while Terminus is active? I actually don't know what happens there. I assume it cleanses your purge technically, but you stay broken. I don't know. It's a really interesting question. I actually don't know if there's an answer to that. Also, Legion just has really good cosmetics overall, so that's definitely a huge plus for me. All right, and Clown. Clown's fun. If you haven't played Clown, he's actually pretty fun. And he's one that I've always just like, if I want someone who's kind of basic, and I want someone who in general just is very very simple to get around loops and very simple to kind of play as, I would go to Clown. Like if I'm just trying to chill, because he's just fun. His bottles are very fun to use, and many people actually realized that Clown existed because Arinad, the self-proclaimed best clown in the world, started to make a guide. Well, has made a guide that is essentially a novel. It's like 140 plus pages, and so everyone's kind of been on the Clown train since then, kind of just like looking at Clown, being like, well, is he really that good, or is he really that fun? And so a lot of people have actually been looking at Clown a lot more than usual. So a lot of people actually are starting to agree with me too. He is fun, but he does rely on gen aggression very heavily. And it can be exhausting to run that every game, but still getting hits that you normally wouldn't because of those purple bottles always is a nice feeling. And overall, I mean, it's just a nice power to use. It's very simple. It doesn't slow you down too much when you use it. Properly using yellow bottles also feels great, because it rarely comes up where you can use it in actually like a really optimal way. And just like I said for Blight, his basic attack animation, like his clean animation, is one of the nicest in the game, if not the best. I mean, that twirl is just so clean. All right, last up in this tier, and just this ranking as a whole, is Demo. And Demo is loved by many, and for a good reason. He's a blast to play, whether you're running hexes, all chase perks, gen regression with portals all over the map, or rare basement Demo. They're just all fun. And his shred is one of those abilities where over time you improve with it, and each time you play, you'll find yourself hitting much better shreds and being a lot more patient when it comes to charging that shred and getting the hit. Also, Bard's Glasses and Rat Liver are so good for him, being a yellow and brown add-on respectively. So me personally, I run these every game with Demo, and it just feels so nice to play. He's also the best user of Save the Best for Last, like by far. And I think that, I mean, like using Save the Best for Last on Demo is like a requirement, but like it always just feels nice to play with Save the Best for Last. And being able to pretty much always avoid token removals on your session by using Shred is, I mean, it's better than any other killer can do. All right, that is my ranking. That is all. We have reached the end. My opinions are out there if you want to respond to them. Drop a comment if you think I had, anything strange. But I will be doing an opposite ranking for Survivor in the future. because I definitely have some opinions when it comes to playing against some killers. But so look out for that. I don't know how far in the future it'll be, but I definitely am gonna be looking to make that one soon. On the screen right now is the end card, and you have two videos that you should consider watching. Also, the middle, click that, subscribe. It's all up to you. See you in the next one.